Hey everybody! Today I have Andrew, and Andrew and I are going to take a very interesting topic. As you know, we get a bunch of questions every week, and we pull out some and we talk about them. Without any prep. And I'll kick it over to Andrew. But he didn't get to prep at all. So today the question is, why do we waste so much of our people's time? Meetings that don't need to happen, emails that don't need to happen. I mean, and the person who wrote it did a great job of claiming that, in a passionate way, hell, 40% of my people's time is wasted. We go to things that don't matter. It hurts our productivity, but more than anything, it hurts their emotional, energy and stuff. So first of all, Andrew, reintroduce yourself to the community.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. My name's Andrew Cappiello. I'm the Director of Professional Services at CaptivateIQ, which is a incentive compensation management software company. I've been in professional services about 10 years now, starting as an implementation specialist and manager and a director at some various companies. But Dean, it's great to be here. I'm excited for this question, honestly.
Yeah. I love the questions we get, and I was telling Andrew before we got on today that we get some questions that don't make it through because they're hilarious, but and one of them I'll just pick on real quick. It was like, when did you start dating or something? And I was like, I don't. Granted, might be funny, but not going to be helpful to anybody. So, Andrew, so the first thought I'd like you to dive into, what do you think the most waste of time that we put our people through that, and by the way, client stuff is what we're supposed to be putting our time into. Internal stuff can be, an energy suck and a time suck. But anyway, what's your first blush feel of that?
Yeah, I'm somebody who finds myself bogged down with Slack or Microsoft Teams channels where there's just message after message after message, and that's folks' main way of communicating. I think just having been a consultant and being in consulting, I want to talk to people, right? And I'd much rather have an effective 6-minute phone call or somebody pick up the phone and call me than be reading through like an army of Slack messages. But I think there's a balance there, Dean, right? Like there's times when you're in a meeting, the person didn't send an agenda, they didn't kind of tell you why you needed to be there, and you're there for 30 minutes, and you're like, man, I wish I could have that 30 minutes back. So I think there's a fine balance that, especially in the director role that I find myself in, is like, do I actually need to be here? Should I be here? And then if not, should this be a Slack message or not? And it's a really funny predicament to be in.
Yeah, and I think we need to be ruthless about finding the balance. We did a project a couple years, and I hadn't thought of this when the question came. We did a project a couple years ago for one of the big six, and it was on this effectiveness. It wasn't time, but effectiveness of email to phone calls, and they found that almost always, if you tried to explain something in an email, you still got a phone call, right? So they began to cut them out, and they particularly cut out the CCs and the BCs, and said if it's not to me, don't do it. And they found a real quick improvement of about 30% of their partners and managers' time. It didn't go any lower into the organization from that. But the firm I built, I was talking to I'm on the board of a consulting firm, and I was talking to them about something in their annual meeting, and I realized that the firm I built doesn't do meetings. I mean, they'll have some, but there's so few. There's no standing meetings or anything. And I bet it was this. You're talking about the balance. I bet it was just this years and years of finding the balance between. And matter of fact, we in our training business, we hired our chief commercial officer. I mean, our chief of staff, wonderful person, came from industry and sends a lot of emails, right? And she's slowly changing that because she finds when I send an email, all I get is a phone call.
Yeah, yeah. I would say 99% of people who interact with me on a daily basis find that they send me an email or Slack message, and I give them a phone call, right? But for me, I'm ruthless about my time and where I spend it. I work for a company that's fully remote, and so there are those meetings that you have just to see somebody build the relationship, and that's really important. So I don't want to discredit those, but there's a balance between just being on for announcements or updates and hey, we could just send this in a newsletter and folks would read it at their own pace. We actually here at Captivate IQ just moved some of our training program and internal enablement program from a 1 hour live meeting once a month to a 10-minute watch a couple of videos, answer a 10-question quiz. And now my management group has a dashboard that can track all of that. So now we've saved essentially 40 hours across my team per month by doing that. And so as a leader, we also have to be doing those things for ourselves.
Absolutely. And announcements can be recorded and videoed. And that's one of the reasons our whole entire training program of 120 things is in short bites, so that you not just did you get exposure, you can go back and look at it right before when you care about it, right? Oh yeah, I remember you did something on that, and I'll go look at it now. We find that very efficient. But you hit on something that I see a lot of right now is a whole bunch of people in a Teams meeting or whatever tech you use that don't need to be there. But because it's scheduled and we don't really have an agenda, and then we re-talk about things we talked about before, and I think that's really irritating people now.
Yeah, I think for me, what's even more irritating is having potentially the wrong people, no agenda, is the meeting that comes after that meeting. I would rather spend, hey, if we need to talk and hash this out, I don't want to have a meeting after this meeting. And I'm pretty ruthless on that. I would rather spend the extra time to get to where we need to get to. Maybe it's an extra 15 minutes, 20 minutes, maybe it's an extra hour, but we don't have to then look at people's calendars and schedule it for next Thursday. And now we're sitting on the problem that could have been solved in an hour and 7-8 days delayed. So that's also one of my other pet peeves.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, there's another one that goes on because of different personalities. We've decided that you'd like to redecide it because you didn't, because you for whatever reason you weren't prepared in that meeting. I recently had a presentation to the owners of our training. We have a board and owners; they're different, to the owners group, and it wasn't run by me. It was run by someone out of our industry. But they said, "Here are the 5 decisions we're going to make. Here are the things we're not going to talk about today, and here's our time limit, and we will finish." And they ran it very well because they said, "That's not on today. That's not on today." And you could, and he kept repeating, "You could have got it on today, but you didn't. So we're not going to change our agenda," because we have a lot of expensive people in the room, and they all flew in, and yeah, and it was just really good, nicely done. I don't mean that he was rude, but it was just great because I felt like, and it was one of those meetings, and I'm the worst. I didn't want to go to. I already knew everything going on in the company I work. I didn't want to go and hear it again, but it was well run, and the lunch was good, and that was important.
That's sometimes the most important piece. And Dean, I think you hit on an interesting point where depending on the type of meeting, like there is a dichotomy here, right? Where there are your folks when you're trying to maybe push a new process or fix something that's broken. There are other folks that do need to ruminate on that a little bit, right? So I think it's important, but you don't let that maybe go further than 24 hours, let's say. When I was a teacher, that was really important.
24 hours, yeah. One thing we do is we have good personality tests on everyone. So we kind of know who needs to think ahead, right? And give them the luxury. By the way, the people who think deeply and come back usually have good points. I mean, we honor that. It's just we have a deadline. So let's move up the activities so you're involved. But all these things, and then I'll let you go, and you're very kind to give us time today. All these things are about effective and efficient, because in our business, unlike other businesses, inefficiency works against our personalities. And I think it really irritates people.
Yeah, and I want to say that in the consulting space or implementation space, the professional services space as a whole, we have folks who are wanting to move and be effective in their role. And usually a customer is paying for our time. And so we want to provide value and for them as well. And that's really important, right? So got to make the customer happy.
Yeah. If we're stuck on internal meetings all the time. All right. Listen, it was great seeing you. I know we're going to catch up soon. And thanks again.